Hey guys, I'm here with another video for you. This is part of a series that we've been doing on self-improvement. So, if that's something that interests you, make sure to stay tuned, because we got a lot more coming. Today, I want to talk about rebuilding yourself. Now, this is something that I feel like not many people really talk about. We talk about being your best self, or improving yourself. But what about when you need to rebuild yourself? How do you do that? When do you even need to do that? Well, there are a number of reasons why you might need to rebuild yourself. Maybe you just feel like you're not living to your potential. You feel unmotivated. You don't really have direction in life. Or maybe you've gone through some kind of hardship or trauma, and you feel like you just need to rebuild yourself from scratch. Whatever the reason may be, I think it's safe to say that we all have had to rebuild ourselves at one point or another in our lives. And so, in this video, I'm going to share with you how I rebuilt myself and how I continue to rebuild myself even today. The first thing I did was take some time for myself to reflect. I asked myself some questions like, who am I? What do I believe in? What are my values? What do I want to achieve in life? Why do I want to achieve those things? And by reflecting on these questions, I was able to gain a better understanding of myself, of who I am, what I believe in, and of the kind of person that I want to be. This is such an important step because it really helps you to get clear on what you want and what you're working towards. If you don't know who you are or what you believe in, then it's going to be really hard to rebuild yourself. You don't have anything to work towards. The next thing I did was set some goals. Now, setting goals is not something that I used to be very good at, but it's something that I've gotten better at over time. And I've talked about goal setting in other videos, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here. But essentially, after I got a better understanding of who I am and what I want to achieve, I started setting some goals. I started small and I worked my way up. And I made sure that my goals were specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. If you want more information on how to set goals, I will link to a video below. After setting my goals, I started taking action. Now, this is probably the hardest part of the whole process, because it's easy to get stuck in the planning stage or just the dreaming stage. It's easy to say, oh, I want this, or oh, I want that. But it's a whole other story to actually go out there and do the work that's required to achieve those things. But I knew that if I wanted to rebuild myself, if I wanted to become the person that I wanted to become, then I had to take action. And so, I started taking action towards my goals, no matter how small the action was. Some days it felt like I wasn't making any progress at all. But I just kept going because I knew that eventually my hard work would pay off. As I was taking action towards my goals, I also started to visualize myself achieving those goals. Visualization is a really powerful tool, and I've talked about it in other videos before. So again, I'll link to those videos below. But essentially, when you visualize something, you're bringing it into reality. You're manifesting it. So I started visualizing myself achieving my goals, and I could almost feel myself achieving them. I could feel the emotions associated with achieving those things, and that helped me to stay motivated and focused on my goals. Another thing that I did was surround myself with positive people. When you rebuild yourself, there are going to be a lot of naysayers. There are going to be people who don't believe in you, who don't think that you can achieve your goals. You have to distance yourself from those kinds of people because they're going to hold you back. You need to surround yourself with people who believe in you, who support you, who encourage you, and who are also working towards their own goals. When you surround yourself with positive people, it creates a positive feedback loop, and it helps you to stay motivated and focused on your goals. Another important thing that I did was to forgive myself. We all make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes can hold us back. They can prevent us from moving forward. And so, when I was rebuilding myself, I made sure to forgive myself for any mistakes that I had made in the past. I realized that everyone makes mistakes. It's what we do after we make those mistakes that defines us. Do we dwell in the mistake, or do we learn from it and move on? I decided to learn from my mistakes and move on. And when I did that, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. Finally, I continued to educate myself. I read books. I listened to podcasts. I watched YouTube videos. I did everything that I could to educate myself on the topics that I was interested in. I wanted to become a well-rounded person. I wanted to have interesting conversations with people, and I wanted to be able to contribute to society in some way. And so I continued to educate myself, even after I had achieved my goals. Because learning is a lifelong journey, and the more we learn, the more we grow. And when we grow, we change. And when we change, we rebuild ourselves. So those are the things that I did to rebuild myself. I hope that this video has inspired you to rebuild yourself, to become the person that you want to become. Remember that it's a journey, not a destination. Enjoy the journey and don't be afraid to ask for help along the way. There are so many resources available to help you rebuild yourself. You just have to know where to look. Okay, so I want to transition now to talking about when you should rebuild yourself. As I mentioned earlier, we all have to rebuild ourselves at some point or another in our lives. But there are some signs that tell us that it's time to rebuild ourselves. The first sign is when we're no longer living to our potential. We all have potential. We all have dreams and aspirations. But sometimes we let life get in the way and we stop pursuing our dreams. We settle for mediocrity instead of excellence. When this happens, it's time to rebuild yourself. You need to rediscover your passions and start pursuing them again. Another sign that it's time to rebuild yourself is when you're unhappy. If you're unhappy with your life, with your career, with your relationships, then it's time to rebuild yourself. You need to find happiness within yourself first, and then it will radiate outwards into your life. You can't make others happy if you're not happy yourself. A third sign that it's time to rebuild yourself is when you're going through a major life transition. When we go through major life transitions, such as graduating from school, getting married, having children, losing a loved one, we need to rebuild ourselves. These experiences change us, and we need to change with them. We need to adapt and evolve in order to keep growing. A fourth sign that it's time to rebuild yourself is when you feel like you've lost your identity. This can happen when we go through major changes in our lives, or when we experience trauma. When this happens, we need to take the time to explore who we are and to create a new identity for ourselves. An identity that reflects who we are now and who we want to be. A fifth sign that it's time to rebuild yourself is when you're ready to grow. We all have the ability to grow and change, and sometimes we need to rebuild ourselves in order to make room for that growth. When we feel like we're stagnating, or when we feel like we're not growing anymore, then it's time to rebuild ourselves. You need to set new goals for yourself, pursue new opportunities, and challenge yourself to grow in new ways. I hope that these signs have helped you to understand when it might be time to rebuild yourself. If you feel like it's time for you to rebuild, then I encourage you to do it, to embrace the journey and to enjoy the process. Rebuilding yourself is an opportunity for you to become the person that you've always wanted to be, so don't waste it. Thank you for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this video and that you've learned something new. If you have, please give me a like and subscribe to my channel. And I will see you in my next video.